Hey guys, the movie that we're going to recap today is about the distant future where the Earth is occupied by ancient gods and genetically altered humans. When a god is sentenced to death, he seeks a new human host and a woman to bear his child. Immortal is a 2004 English-language French live-action and animated science fiction film co-written and directed by Enki Bilal. To find out the whole story, make sure to watch the video until the end. Let's start. Immortal takes place in New York City in the year 2095, where genetically altered humans live side by side with unaltered men and women. Central Park has been mysteriously encased in an exclusion zone, where people who attempt to enter are killed instantly. It begins with some strange people being taken to the hospital. That's when a blue-haired young woman named Jill, a genetically modified human, tries to run away, but the guards get a hold of her before she escapes. Jill is found to be the most interesting genetic test subject as she possesses a number of secret powers, including one that enables her to procreate with the gods, though she knows nothing of this. As she struggles, they put a strange device in her mouth and take her to a hospital where newly found modified humans are examined. In the next scene, we see a pyramid that came out of nowhere in the middle of the city. We learn that inside the pyramid, the gods of ancient Egypt have judged one of their fellow gods, Horus. He has been sentenced to mortality by his peers and only has a short time to live. As Horus comes out of the pyramid, we witness that he has the body of a human being, but the head of a falcon. His fellow gods tell Horus that he only has 7 days to interact with the people of New York in order to procreate. During this time, he is supposed to look for a host body and at the same time find a woman, like Jill, who has the ability to procreate with the gods. Horus sees 2 helicopters hovering around, taunting him. He uses his powers to make both the helicopters crash into each other with a huge explosion. For a brief moment, he stands on the pyramid and shouts, "Children, my human children, I'm back." Meanwhile, Jill is being used as a guinea pig by Dr. Elma Turner, who wants to learn more about her and her kind. She was the one who discovered that Jill is not completely human and her tissues appear to be no more than a few months old, although her physical form is already that of an adult. Elma and her colleague talk about how Jill is dangerous and she must be given a powerful dose of medication since she managed to damage her carrier. Elma then decides to take Jill with her and tells her colleague that she will need a supply of antibiotics, microneedles, and a detailed report of all the analysis. As Jill is being taken, they see a child who is waiting for her mother to return to him. They get into the flying car and leave. Later in the news, we learn that scientists believe that the pyramid Horus came in is actually a gateway to a parallel universe. We also find out that a mysterious killer is brutally murdering people in New York City, with a body count of 4,000 so far. Next, we meet Kyle, the de facto ruler of the city. Kyle asks a police investigator about the person working on the serial killer case. He finds out it's Froby, a specialist in the abnormal. At the same time, there's another horrific murder, and Froby immediately reaches the murder scene. He then talks to a witness about the murder. The witness begins feeling ill on his way to Froby's office for further questioning, but his flying car crashes on the way, killing the police officer escorting him, and then the witness's own head plain explodes. Froby learns of this, and because he believes that Kyle is the one behind everything that's happening in the city, he doesn't buy the officer's hypothesis, telling him that he's extinct. In the next scene, Elma performs various tests on Jill and tells her that her organs are not in the right place. She has no memory, and her internal biological age appears to be only 3 months old. Elma then makes Jill an offer. Work with her, and in return, she'll give Jill a card she can use to go anywhere, and a room too. Jill agrees, and Elma puts a device on her nose which will monitor Jill all the time. Jill meets John, who tells her that the atmosphere of this planet doesn't seem suitable to him, and that Jill is going to have to learn to live here alone. Jill begins to cry. Moments later, cylindrical containers begin to fall from the sky. We learn these containers have criminals inside them. The police arrive and discover one of the containers is empty. Then the guards arrive too and shoot all of the policemen, then take the dead bodies of the criminals with them. Kyle arrives. Froby hands him a cut-off piece of foot, and Kyle leaves. Apparently, the foot belongs to a criminal named Nicopole. Horus takes partial control of Nicopol's body. He then tells Nikopol he is the mysterious killer. He has been unsuccessful in attempting to take over the bodies of other humans, and the host bodies self-destruct while attempting to accommodate a god. Horus then uses a piece of broken track and turns it into Nikopol's leg. Nikopol then tries to escape, but due to his heavy foot, he is unable to walk. This is when Horus enters his body. Jill comes back to her room and takes a blue-colored pill. Then, following Elma's instructions, Jill writes down all her activities. Meanwhile, Nikopol is being chased by police officers, and he ends up jumping from a tall building. Of course, since Horus controls his body now, he turns into a falcon and begins to fly. All of this news about Nikopol scares Kyle. He and his father were involved in a lot of illegal activities, including experimenting on aliens, and Nikopol was fully aware of all they were doing. So they had Nikopol sentenced to 30 years to keep him out of the picture. Nikopol is seen sitting in a club talking to Horus when Horus tells him that he's looking for a girl with blue hair. That's when Jill enters. She's wearing a spacesuit and meets with John, who tells her that she is destined to live on Earth and that the blue pill will help her forget her past and that she should try to live her life as humans do, even though she's made up of a different kind of energy. Jill returns to the club where she and Nikopol start talking. That's when we see a strange man recording them while sitting in front of them. Nikopol then offers Jill to drop her home, but she denies his offer. That's when Horus uses his power to convince her to leave with Nikopol. As they leave, the man follows them. That's when he sees a genetically modified human sent by Kyle to kill Nikopol sitting next to him, who after pulling his recording device from him, kills him. As they reach Jill's room, Nikopol, or Horus, forcefully mates with Jill to provide him a son before his death sentence is carried out. The next day, Jill finds feathers on her bed. They belonged to Horus. The hotel manager then comes to inspect the room, and soon after he leaves, the painting of a pyramid and a bird vanishes and turns into a door. Jill enters the room and finds Nikopol inside. She points a gun at him and begins questioning him about who he is and what he wants. He then pretends to be dead, which makes Jill leave. Jill then comes to meet Elma and tells her about all that has happened to her. Elma questions her if she has ever mated with a human being before. After briefly thinking about it, Jill tells her she can't remember anything but John. Elma proposes that the blue pill she takes is the reason why she can't remember anything. Jill then gives Elma the blue pill to test it. At the same time, Kyle is watching the video recorded earlier. Kyle asks his assistant why he hasn't killed Nikopol yet. The assistant talks about the girl sitting next to Nikopol, and Kyle then orders him to follow them and kill them both, Jill and Nikopol. Later, a guard kidnaps Jill. That's when Kyle's assistant appears and asks her about Nikopol. But then all of a sudden, Horus arrives and saves Jill. In the next scene, Nikopol tells Horus that he will remove Jill's memory so that she is unable to figure out who he is. Jill is then seen sitting in Central Park in the exclusion zone. There she finds a few skeletons lying around. That's when John appears and claims that the exclusion zone is a gateway to the parallel universe and that it will close after he leaves. Jill then tells him all about Nikopol. To her surprise, John is glad to know that she's been interacting with more people, which will help Jill learn their ways. In the next scene, Elma is seen in a bar asking the bartender about Jill. The bartender, who is a genetically modified person, tells her that he doesn't know any non-modified humans. Elma then tells him that Jill is a genetically modified person, and that's when John appears and scolds her over calling Jill a modified person. As John leaves, Froby appears in the scene, telling Elma that he's also looking for Jill and that he can help her. Meanwhile, Kyle and his assistant go for help in killing the person as he hands this guy Nikopol's cut-off leg. The next day, as Jill and Nikopol are leaving, this assassin tries to come into the room through the bath drain. That's when John arrives, and as they get into John's car, the assassin gets a hold of the car, but they still manage to escape. The three move towards the exclusion area as there's no time for John to leave. Froby and Emma also arrive, and they find the assassin's arm that was broken off while he was holding onto the car. They start following Jill, John, and Nikopol while the police and the assassin were following them, but they somehow manage to reach the exclusion area. At the same time, Kyle comes close to the pyramid to apologize, believing there's an alien inside the pyramid who is here to take revenge on him for experimenting on them. But the second Kyle touches the pyramid, it vanishes along with Kyle. Meanwhile, John tells Jill that it's now time for him to leave as he comes close to the gateway to the parallel universe. He then gives Jill a red pill which will make her forget everything and at the same time make her a complete human. They say their last goodbyes and John vanishes into thin air. Later, the assassin also enters the exclusion area and is about to kill Nicopole, but Horus comes out of Nicopole's body and kills the assassin instead. Then the pyramid and Kyle appear again. In the next scene, Horus tells Nicopole that it's time for him to leave too and thanks him for all his help. He then moves toward Jill and tells her that a very precious thing of him is with Jill and asks her to take care of it. Horus then goes back into the pyramid he came from. We then see Jill begin to forget her past and everything that happened with Nicopole. At the same time, the exclusion area also vanishes, and the police arrest Nicopole since there's still 1 year of his 30-year sentence remaining. That's when we see Jill leaving with Elma. The next scene we see is a year later. Nicopole is now out of jail. He goes to meet Jill, who gave birth to a baby boy. Nicopole also sees a bird that looks exactly like Horus, which apparently means that Horus successfully managed to procreate. In the end, Jill still doesn't recognize Nicopole, and Horus is seen taking his last breath. This is it for today's video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.